It's kind of like the second and the third because I had a video for how to select, how to like find and select an image to use, and basically you're going to be using like SVGs, PNGs, and things like that, like photo files like that. It's just easier whenever especially if you type in like whatever you're looking for like. So I'm doing the autism heart right now and the rose heart, and I would type in like rose heart SVG or autism heart SVG, or if I wanted something like, I don't know, like a cat silhouette, you know what I mean? Like, for me, I found that it's easier to work with images that have like one or two layers. Um, yeah, if you want something more intricate, I'm sure you can apply the same method that I'm going to show you here, but in further detail, right? And then there was an issue, so I'm sure you can understand how frustrating that was. But so I'm just going to, like I said, I just kind of combined the second and the third video, so it'll be just in one. Basically, the second video was just me saying to use a PNG SVG to make sure you get any creative licenses that you need, and stuff like that. So as you saw, this one was the Rose Heart SVG. One of the places that I start with is I make sure that right here where it says layer 1, sometimes when you open an image, it'll say background. And you just want to make sure that you double click that background, and you're not going to see this screen whenever you do it. You'll see a different screen that says like convert to layer, and it'll start as like a layer 0. And so that's where I usually start at. Another thing that I do before I even start editing is I'll go up here to image, or you don't have to do it every time, but as you can see here, the canvas, which is like this small checkered part in the back, the canvas is kind of small. It ends directly after the image. So like what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying a stroke to this image, which is going to put an outline basically around it. So we're going to need some more space to work with. So we're going to need a larger canvas. So under image, you can go to canvas size. Also, another thing to notice, I am recording on my MacBook right now, but it's because my Windows laptop, whenever I screen record, it doesn't show you like pop-up screens like this one. So I would have to explain what I was doing here. So yeah, on my MacBook it records the entire screen, so you'll be able to see these pop-up screens. That's why I'm recording on my MacBook right now. So the width right now is 5958 and the height is 5606. So I'm just going to add like a couple hundred to those and make them like 6500 or 6500 and 6000. You can see, so I feel like that's not enough space, so I'll go ahead and I'll make it even larger. Let's do like 6900 and 6400 here. And the numbers that you're going to see here are going to be different because every image size is different. So just depending on how large your image is, you'll just adjust accordingly. You just want to make sure you give yourself some room around it to work with, okay? So I'm okay. I think this should be thick enough. Another thing that I'm going to do for this particular image before I even start with my layers and my selections and my strokes is I'm going to fill in these blank areas here, because if I were to try to apply a stroke before I filled it in, it's going to apply a stroke to everything. So let's see. You see how it's going around, and it's like, because I just want the stroke around the image, because we're kind of creating that vessel to pour the silicone in, right? But you see how it's applying the stroke to like every single line. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in all of those with the paint bucket. And if you have a PNG type, or even an SVG, since they don't have, they have transparent backgrounds, you'll have to do this for those. More than likely, you'll have to do this for those. I just clicked the wrong part. So yeah, you just want to click inside of all these little blank areas and fill them all in. So now that the entire image is filled, this is the image that I'm actually going to be working with. So the way that I start is I duplicate and I turn that first layer off. So if you want to rename your layers, you can do that. I never rename my layers, but if it's going to help you keep it a little bit organized for you, you can go ahead and do that. So like I'll save this one as the original layer, and I'm just gonna hide it by taking off the eye, and I'm gonna leave it there just in case I need to come back to it later, or if I mess up somewhere later, I can just delete that layer out and reduplicate my original layer. So now I'm going to duplicate my layer 1 copy, technically where I'm going to start. I'm going to duplicate that twice. Right, so if we wanted to rename them, this will be my dip layer. This will be my base layer. Why did I do that? I accidentally duplicated it, my bad. This will be my base layer. See, and I was about to duplicate it again. This kind of becomes like muscle memory, right? So then details. So notice we're missing our lip layer, but it's because you're going to apply 2 strokes. But you have to apply a stroke to the dip first, and then you duplicate the dip, and then you'll create your lip, and you'll see that in here in a bit. So let's get it started, right? I usually work from the bottom up. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to apply a stroke in order to get our dip. So as you can see now, as opposed to the beginning when it was trying to go into every single black line, it was applying the stroke. It's just applying the stroke to the outside. And your stroke, your stroke, the width, the thickness of your stroke, I guess, right here, the PX set width of stroke. This number is going to vary depending on your image as well. The image size, you're just going to want to give it a little bit of, just make sure you give yourself a little bit of space, right? So another thing that I do, sorry, I'm getting all blah now. Another thing that I do, in my particular, like just in the way that I do it, is I don't really worry too much about the size of my dip here in Photoshop or in Microsoft 3D Builder. I adjust that in Cura, and you're going to see that in a later video. So in Cura is where I'll change this to make it thicker or smaller. So for now, it's just kind of there for like a placeholder. So we've applied the stroke. The stroke is the green part, right? Now we're going to right click it when you're using a Windows computer. Right click it, and you're going to rasterize the layer style. And what that does is, here, I'll undo it real quick. As you can see here, the effects and the stroke are kind of like on separate, like it's all one layer, but they're like separated, right? So whenever you rasterize it, it just kind of like drops it and merges it all together. So now that the layer's been rasterized, what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this entire layer. I'm going to select this entire image, the stroke, the image, every single detail. And you do that by using your, I always make the assumption that people know how to use this. You're going to be using a quick selection tool, which looks like this little, it's like a paintbrush with a marching ant symbol, right? And you can just, when you're doing that, you're just clicking and dragging and kind of selecting the entire image. I don't know why my Photoshop's getting all laggy now. That always happens when you're trying to do something, right? So, as you can see, some of the marching ants are like not around the outside. Now they are. They're on the whole outside. So, one of the things that I'm going to do, and I should have done this earlier, right, to show you all, to give you a better idea, but you can turn off the other layers that you're not working on. So right now we're working on the lip layer, so I've hidden all my other layers, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the eyedropper tool to select that same green, and then I'm going to paint that green. I'm going to paint this entire selection. Okay, so now what we can do is we can turn on this base layer back, and you can see how there's the image and then the stroke around, right? But when we turn it off, we're just left with this green, the filled in. It's a little bit thicker than the original, right? So now what we can do is we can deselect. We're going to duplicate our dip layer because we're done with this layer now. So this is what our dip layer is going to look like. We're going to duplicate that and we'll call it the lip. and I like to work from the bottom up. So the lip is the first one you put into Microsoft 3D Builder. So I like my lip to be on the bottom, and you'll see why here in a bit. So what we're going to do next is we're going to hide the dip, and we're going to apply another stroke to our lip layer. So we're going to have to change the color. Right, so we have green, let's do blue. Now, the lip layer is the only one where like not the only one, but the lip layer, like the thickness of this stroke kind of matters, because this is how thick your wall is going to be, right? You really just need it thick enough to be like a barrier. And honestly, like kind of the thinner it is, the easier it is to kind of, not bend it, but like maneuver it, I guess is the word I'm looking for. That's not really the word I'm looking for either. And I don't remember all the verbiage I used in my original video. I should have rewatched it and just kind of said what I said the first time, but it's fine. Hopefully you guys are visual learners. So yeah, this doesn't need to be super thick, because it's just gonna be kind of wasting filament, because it's really just more so of a barrier to keep the silicone in. And since the silicone's not going to penetrate through it if it's really thin, but obviously don't make it like fingernail thin. You need it to have a little bit of thickness, right? So we'll do 70 pixels here. And again, as I mentioned, this number will be different depending on your image size. So just look and see kind of how thick. And again, it's a preference thing. You'll learn it as you go, the more that you do this. My first ones, the walls were super thick, and not the walls, but yeah, I guess my lip layers were thick, and therefore the little barriers around my 3D printed object were thick. So yeah. So we've applied that. No, don't forget to rasterize your layer. That was a common mistake that I did in the very beginning, is I would always forget to rasterize. So now we're going to select the entire image again. Use the eyedropper tool, grab that blue, and then just paint this layer in. Okay. So if we turn on the other layers, right, we can see where the blue, that's my lip layer. That's going to be the little barrier that's going to keep my silicone in. The green, remember, that is the dip layer that doesn't get 3D printed. So when we turn on the base, we can see that the green is going to be the blank space in my 3D printed object, right? So the green ends up becoming the wall part of our silicone mold. So next we're going to select our base layer, and here what we can do is we can turn off our other layers, right? And see how the marching ants are still kind of on the outside? When you go to your quick selection tool, you can just select the middle, and it'll kind of snap into place to select this layer. So now you're going to select a different color besides green or blue. And since I already have red here, I'm not going to use red either. I don't know if I mentioned it already, but black and white don't really work in Microsoft 3D Builder. So always be sure to change the colors, or when you're choosing colors, don't use black and white. Also, I like to use kind of like high neon colors, just because it's easier to differentiate the colors. So I'm going to fill this layer in with pink. And so now that layer is done, right? So we're going to have the base layer, the green is our dip, and the blue is our lip. So we can turn all these layers off and select our details layer now, turn that layer on. So now we're wanting to select the black, because that's what I use as my details layers. Now, my details layer. So this is going to be a preference thing for you all when you do it. So what I do, the way that I do it is I go up to select, I go to color range and I just select that black. And I know that the black is selected now, but see how the red is still in there? I need to get rid of that red. So the way that I do that is I go to select and I inverse my selection. So now everything but the black is selected, and I'm going to delete that. Now what I do is I inverse again to reselect my black. Now remember that it's not going to black doesn't work, so I need to select a different color. Let's do like this aqua color. And then just paint in all those black details. And I think if you probably wanted to do like a multi-layer mold, you would just have to redo more layers, right? So I'm sure like the more layers, the more kind of like depth you can get with your, not depth, but you could do like a multi-layer inside of the mold, inside the Freshie. Hopefully that makes sense out loud. So let's turn on all our layers and deselect, right? So now we can see we have the entire image. So again, the blue is the lip, the green is the dip, the pink is the base, and the blue is the detail. So now I'm done creating my layers. One thing you just want to make sure is that there's no like white or like other colors that kind of shine through. Let's see if I can get, like in these little areas here, you need it to be like a clear change from color to color. Because if there's any like little spaces, it 3D prints that way. I don't know, one of my prints came out like that, and it was just a mistake that I didn't want to make again. So yeah, now the way that I save these is you have to save every layer individually. So I just turn off my other layers. I make sure that my lip layer is selected and visible. And then I go to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. Now I've already saved these, so I'm not going to save them right now. But I would just rename it like as my lip, and then I have a folder on my Windows laptop that is specifically for my mold. So I would go to my folder, find the specific folder that I created for this particular mold, and I would save each one of these layers in there. So like I would save my lip, and then I would hide my lip, select my dip, make it visible, export, quick export as PNG, save this as my dip layer. Obviously you would be hitting save and not cancel, right? So now I'm gonna hide this layer, select my base layer, make it visible, file, export, quick export as PNG. This is going to be my base layer. Hide it, select the details layer, make it visible, file, export, quick export as PNG, and then details. Okay, and so that's all I would need to do on Photoshop for this particular one. And then whenever I close it, it asks you if you want to save. I'm afraid to close it though because I don't want it to mess up my recording. And I'm going to do another one on Photoshop, but I'm going to end this video here and then I'll splice them together. I just want to make sure that whatever recorded up to this point is actually the file's not corrupt or anything, so that way I don't waste time again. So yeah, I'm gonna do the Autism Heart next, but that'll be spliced together with this one. Autism Heart, I've already rewatched the first video and I feel like it was okay. It wasn't terrible. So, or at least it wasn't corrupt, and I think the explanation was decent. So I'm just going to find my Autism Heart, and as you can see here, I already have the base, the dip. I've already done it. The details, right? But what was I saying? Yeah, we're just gonna do it again. So I'm gonna start back with my original image, which was the Autism Heart SVG, and I'm going to open that up in Photoshop. So again, remembering that the first thing we would do here is make sure that it wasn't a background layer. This one's already a layer, so I don't have to worry about converting it into a layer. And remember, again, you would just do that by double clicking on the layer and a screen will pop up saying convert to layer, right? As you can see here, the canvas is pretty small, so we're going to start by adjusting the size of our canvas again. Let's do and I think it looks decent. If I remember correctly on this one, I did have to play with it a little bit to get it to where I wanted. So of course here, sorry, I'm thinking right now. Yeah, so the first thing that I did on the other one was I applied a stroke to it, and then I just kind of I just fixed in all these little weird areas, right? So sometimes for SVGs that are kind of just like pieces on there was no like, what's the word I'm looking for? There was no like outline around it, right? So you can apply a stroke to it to kind of force that outline to be there. And so I'm going to apply this stroke, and then I'm going to zoom in here. Don't forget to rasterize the layer. And this is just one of the things that you may not have to do this if your image already has an outline, but if your image doesn't have an outline and it's just separate, when it's just like separate things, you have to do this, right? You have to kind of give it a background of some sort. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my eyedropper tool and grab that blue, take my brush, and I'm just going to kind of try to straighten out this little area here. And then I know from the last time that it's a little messed up down here at the bottom too. And over here on this side. Let's check it at the midpoint. That looks fine. And it looked a little janky, like super up close, right? But when you zoom out, it doesn't look so bad. So then this becomes my original layer, right? So we'll say this is my original layer, and we're gonna hide that, remember? Because we just want it there just in case we make a mistake. So now we're gonna take this layer and duplicate it twice. Or you can duplicate the copy too if you want, because they're technically the same. And then let's go ahead and rename these just for the sake of keeping it a little organized for you all. Remember that the bottom one for now is the dip. This is going to be the base. This will be the details. And then after we apply the first stroke to our dip layer and duplicate that, then we'll get our lip layer. So let's hide our other layers. Let's starting with our dip. We're gonna go down here, and I don't think I've explained it yet, but you can find stroke here under the layer styles. I think that's what this one's called. Yeah, a layer style. It looks like an FX. And just in case for whatever reason you don't have that, you don't have them like down here at the bottom like I do, it's under layer, and then your layer styles here, and then you would apply your stroke. So let's go with a different color that's not already used. And again, this is going to be our dip. The size of the dip is not that important. The lips, the size of the stroke on the lip layer is the one that's more important, right? So after we've applied the stroke to that, we're going to rasterize this layer. And this, I'm going to show you another way that you can do it a little bit more efficiently. And I didn't do it on the first one, but I'll do it on here. So you can, before you fill in this entire layer with pink, you can just duplicate it and do your lip stroke right away, right? And you can even just keep that and then select the one on the bottom, because this is just a preference thing. I like to work from the bottom. This will be our lip layer. We're going to apply another stroke. Again, changing the color to something that's obviously different from pink. See, like red looks too close for me personally, so I would do like a but blue's already there, so I would do, let's do like a green. And this one, the lip stroke doesn't need to be as thick because that's just going to be the barrier around your 3D printed object, just to hold the silicone in. So now that we've applied our stroke to our lip layer, let's go ahead and rasterize it. So now, starting on our lip layer, we're going to take our quick selection tool. We're going to select the entire image. It's going to select everything on this layer because we have all the other layers hidden. So you can see the marching ants are going around the entire thing. It's going around the actual image, it's going around the dip layer, and it's going around the lip layer. So let's take our eyedropper tool and grab that green. Now we're just going to paint this entire lip layer green. Right, so now we can deselect our lip layer and hide it, and go up to our, deselect the lip layer and hide it, go up to our dip layer, make it visible, and we still have the marching ants all the way around. And so as I showed you before, you can select with your quick selection tool in the middle and it just snaps into place. So that's what I was just going to show you. That's one of the things that I do typically, but I forgot to explain it I didn't do it in the other one. But it's just a little bit faster to go, like, to just click in the middle and have it snap itself into place. So eyedropper tool, grab the pink, take your brush tool, paint this entire layer in pink. Hide it, select your base layer, make it visible, go to your quick selection tool, snap your selection into place. And now our base layer, we already have this blue around the outside. So we can just go ahead and take that blue and paint the entire thing in. And honestly, what I could have done as well is I could have taken, I could have left my original layer. Let's deselect. I could have left my original, you know what, I'm not even going to explain that because it's just going to confuse you all. Or it may confuse you, and I don't want to confuse you. So now we can hide this layer and select our details layer, make it visible. So now we just want the puzzle pieces. So I'm going to go to select and select by color range, and I'm just going to eliminate that dark blue out of there. So as you can see, the dark blue is gone. So now let's go to inverse, and it should select everything. No, it's not. Okay, so that didn't work, but we can go back to our quick selection tool and just select our puzzle pieces. And this should all snap into place. All our puzzle pieces are selected. We're going to make them one color. Let's go with, have I used red yet? No. Let's go with red. And just paint all of our puzzle pieces red. Even though that one's already red, we want it to be the exact same shade of red. So we're going to go ahead and color that in as well. So now when we deselect and turn on all of our layers, let's look at the entire image. This is what we're left with. So we have our detail layer, which would be the red puzzle pieces. We have our base layer, which is just this blue by itself. Our dip layer, which is the pink. And our lip layer, which is the green. And again, your colors can be different. They don't have to be, you don't have to use the same colors. I just like to use bright colors. It's easier. I think it's easier to differentiate. Sometimes I think also dark colors would probably be easier too. It's probably easier on your eyes. But again, preferences. So if you remember, you hide all your layers except for the layer that you're going to save. So I have my lip layer. My lip layer is selected and it's visible. I'm going to go up to File, Export, Quick Export as PNG. Save it as my lip layer. Again, you'll be hitting save and not cancel. Dip is selected and visible. Quick export that as a PNG. Change it to dip. Save it. Hide the dip. Select the base and make it visible. And I would quick export as a PNG. And then I would do the same for my details layer. So then I would be left with 4 layers that I'm going to be opening in Microsoft 3D Builder to go from there. So yeah, this is, again, this, I've already recorded all the other videos. I think all the other videos at this point are uploaded to YouTube except for this one because of the technical difficulties that I ran into. So hopefully this video is gonna upload fine, and then I'll be able to like announce that I've made these videos. So yeah, if you have any questions on how to do this, like if you have any questions, or if there's any way that I can elaborate on this a little bit better, please reach out with comments or send me a message on Facebook or something. All right, thank you guys, good luck.